All right. Good morning, everyone. It's about 5 minutes after the hour, so I think we'll get started. I know that last week we didn't have time to get to Daniel's question before he had to leave. I'm wondering, Daniel, are you with us this morning? Not hearing anything, and I don't think that question was from Daniel Houghton. So shipping default network policy is something we talked about a little bit last week. If it's of interest to you, please weigh in on the PR. Next up, we have a question from Kishore about access log formats. Kishore, you want to take us through this?
Yeah, sure, Mitch. So currently in our system, to enable the to configure the access log, so the end user has to go via control plane to update the global mesh config. Then via telemetry API, end user can reference that provider and so that in the specific workload, the user get the specified log formats. So there is a document I have prepared, Mitch. Maybe probably we can go through that.
Okay.
In the notes, in our agenda notes.
I see. Yep. We get moved over to that.
Yeah, this is what. So this is for enabling the application and namespace owners to configure the access log format directly with the telemetry API, without requiring to modify the global mesh config. And so that data plane teams with limited privileges, still they can configure their own required format. And also with this methodology, we can mitigate the risks associated with the frequent modifications to the global mesh config, and so we can avoid the dependency with the control plane team to make end user specific configurations onto the workload specific configuration access logs. Yeah, this is how the proposed system would be. So if the end user wants, the data plane operator wants to specify any configuration access log format specific to the specific workload or namespace, so you can use the telemetry CRD with the new format without relying on the control plane team or without disturbing the mesh config. Yeah, this picture depicts the current system. So the data plane operator requests the control plane team admin with the new format. So the control plane team should update the new format, should update with the new format onto the mesh config. So on this use case, we have two challenges. One is dependency on the control plane team, and the second one is updating the mesh config with the new configurations, so that it becomes heavy maintenance and modification to the global config, though it is specific to the workload, and also adding the numerous configurations onto the mesh config. So as a workaround, we have the envoy filters, but with the we can install the envoy filters, but with the envoy filters, we are getting the redundant logs. One is custom log and another one is default log. So in the requirements, we have the end user can customize their workload level access log format, and also the decoupling the privileges. So without asking for, without privileges, they can with the telemetry API they can enable their own logging, and also it becomes also easier and user friendly. and also bloat free to the mesh config with such a number of log formats onto the global mesh. So it becomes less maintenance to the mesh config, bloat free with the log formats. So the design idea is thus as we have already have the telemetry API. So there we are referring metrics trace. In the similar fashion, we have the access log as well. So in the current system, access logs, we are referring the providers, these providers being configured in the global mesh config. So to enable this feature extension, we are adding the envoy file access log field in the access log section of the telemetry API so that we can enable the new access format for the end user. So with that, we can fulfill these three use cases. Providers, that is what current system in the current system. So by referencing the providers, uh, and also we have the backward compatibility. And second one is user defined format. So we can specify this field in the telemetry. So user can specify the configure the format. So based on the need, we have the so that we can have achieve the dual logging flexibility based on the need. Either user can customize their own, or they want to provide. I mean, they want to refer the providers referred in the. I mean, configured in the mesh config, or either both.
Kishore, can you help me understand why an individual service owner would want to modify the logging format different from the other service owners in the cluster?
Yeah, there may be some different teams, right? Development team or test team and management teams. The management team could, in the large scale environments, the management team honoring, I mean, managing the control plane, but the dev team are responsible for their dev parts or testing part, test team in the similar fashion production team. So all these they want if they want their own customized format as per their needs. They need to go to the control plane team, and the intern the control plane should update the should modify the global mesh config by including all these formats. So on every suppose if they want to add any new field onto already existing log format, uh, we should follow the same process.
So just everyone knows, I think you probably knows this, Kusha, in the telemetry resources, you could disable logging. It doesn't, I don't think it allows you to customize how access logging you want to be. But let's say if the admin sets something, you could potentially enable it, choose to enable it or disable it.
Yeah, this is we are giving the flexibility to the end user to make their customization to the logs.
Have
Yeah,
you thought about how this work for ambient? I assume you are mainly for targeting for sidecar. Is that true?
yes, Lynn. Yeah, this is for sidecar.
But if you're changing the API, it needs to work for ambient too, because I think ambient has basic telemetry support also. So that's one thing. The other thing I think Mitch had a valid point. Like, how common is this a scenario given telemetry API has been around for a long time? Is this a common scenario for people to customize per namespace, which seems pretty odd?
I think probably the most obvious case where this is going to be needed, it's not so much about format as about what data is included in the access log. So if you imagine a soft multi-tenant environment where you've got multiple teams from the org and a platform team hosting the cluster, and one team needs to get a little bit more information out of their access logs. They need an attribute that is not being logged by default. What they would need to do is work with the platform admins to get the mesh config modified to create a log provider that is of the proper format. And then
use the
they could
Envoy
reference that
filter.
from the telemetry API, right?
Right, or they can supply an Envoy filter to enable, customize the access log. I'm pretty sure that can be done also.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to
Yes.
pitch in here. So if we use an Envoy filter to have our customized access logs, we are actually getting both the default access logs and customized access logs, which creates a bloat in logs which are collected. And I I go with Mish, like it is the exact use case which we are trying to be addressing. Yeah.
And as Siddharth said, there is one open issue also, that if we use envoy filter, there are two, like the default and the like the formatted one, both are coming. So that issue is still open, I guess. Maybe you can just paste Siddharth here.
Yeah, one more point I would like to put forward is that uh, regarding the use case, like how common is the use case having different log formats, right? So I think having the use case of having different log formats is already understood, because mesh config has the provision to specify different log formats. But that change in the log format is not through the telemetry API. We just want to give it in a more flexible way. So, the control plane admins don't need to get involved for log format changes. So there would be a secure bifurcation between the data plane and control plane teams. Yeah.
That makes sense to me. And I can see in the sidebar here, oh, Costin, you can go ahead and speak to it. I was just going to read your comments.
No, I'll just say something slightly different. My question always when it comes to telemetry and Istio is why is it an Istio specific problem and not an open telemetry problem? I mean, how would someone using open telemetry SDK and native telemetry and all this solve the same problem? And how different are we from what the rest of the industry is doing? If we are similar close, or there is some hope that it will be, same, then no problem. But inventing parallel APIs for telemetry when open telemetry exists seems a bit, kind of not user friendly.
Does open telemetry have a way to customize Envoy access logs?
Yeah, well, they don't care about that. That's an API, not an implementation specific. They define how you can customize, how you collect telemetry, how you filter telemetry, how you aggregate telemetry, how you transform from one telemetry to the other. It is a pretty poor format right now because it's I think it's a JSON file or property files or text. I don't remember the exact format for the collector. But the problem of specifying which fields are getting logged and what is filtered and not, it's a very common problem. I mean, for all log processors. And by the way, the filtering can happen at different stages. I mean, we may generate some fields, and then only some fields would be filtered and sent upstream to the telemetry, and then they can get aggregated then into metrics by some processors downstream. Because you know how deriving metrics from logs works. I mean, it's a bit more complicated process when you try to do something. Anyway, just something to include in the doc and at least mentions that, hey, this problem is common. There are other solutions. Here, how you do it when you have a mix of collectors and open telemetry and voice and so forth.
Thanks, Costin. That's a great point. So looking back through the history, I see that this was proposed once before in 2021. And it looks like that proposal largely stalled out. One thing I like about the old proposal that might be worth incorporating here, Kishore, is that the the API, at least the field name is more generic rather than calling it the Envoy access log format. I think it just calls it a custom logging format, so that theoretically we're not like tightly coupled to Envoy in that case. And then it would be worth exploring what happens to access logging in ambient with ztunnel. I don't know that ztunnel provides access logs. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's configurable through telemetry API. I thought it's only the Envoy one configurable. I think
Yeah.
ztunnel have some access log. Sorry, John. go ahead.
ztunnel does have access logs. It doesn't respect the telemetry API currently. And part of the reason why I joined late, we didn't put the extension providers in the telemetry API is that there's a large number of configurations for each different one. Like, it doesn't make sense really to just add Envoy file access log, because that's just one of 15 different providers we have. So why is that one special or different, right? And then adding 15 different ones to telemetry is then kind of a very slippery slope of madness. And like, how do we stabilize these things when the things that we're building aren't necessarily even as stable as our APIs, right? Like Lightstep or whatever was a previous provider we had that we removed because they're no longer stable. Whereas this is a V1 API, so the stability requirement is somewhat different.
John, do you think we would need 15 different fields to support those 15 different providers, or is there a way to abstract them so that we have one field that you can use with any provider?
The whole reason we have 15 fields now, well, one, you have to say which one you want to use, so it's kind of a convenient way to also say which one, but they also all have different configurations. So like Zipkin has, I don't know, max tag length, for example, and a service, but file access log, obviously it doesn't have a service. It has a file reference, and it has, you know, a format that you can specify. So each one's like kind of different. Could you have some commonality? Yeah, but not too much. It's really just like the ones with service, you could abstract the service import. Everything else is generally pretty, like the things that are non-generic, or sorry, the things that are generic are the things that are in the telemetry API. So to some extent, we already did that. And the provider is kind of intentionally the non-generic things. Now for this specific use case, like format, could we abstract out format and then like map that into a way that makes sense for the different types of providers that do logs, which maybe all have some sort of notion of format? Maybe, like, it's hard to say, like the access log service, for example, doesn't have formatting. Hotel has formatting, but it's not really the same as standard out formatting.
So, John, you're suggesting the name that envoy access log for, like, whatever the envoy file access log to is some common generic field name, and then use whatever the customized one provider that we are going to use?
So I think for sure it doesn't make sense to have just Envoy file access logging telemetry. So there's really two possible approaches. One, we put all the providers in telemetry, which I think is problematic for a variety of reasons. Or we try to abstract out the fields that we need into common fields, which in this case would be like a common format that we can then map onto each provider's format. But it's not super clear how we, like, one, it's not super, I don't know, mostly because I wasn't here at the beginning, if the requirement is only for custom formats or more customization. Like other people have requirements of a custom service, for example, or, you know, some other fields.
No,
So
it is only for the custom format of the log access.
Yeah, I get this use case is only the custom format, but it's like, is that the only use case we care to solve, right? Because other people have maybe different fields that they personally care about overwriting, right?
Also, isn't the format always, not always, but generally going to be provider specific?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying. Like the providers don't really have the same format concepts. You could maybe make something that's close enough, but not necessarily the same.
So it's like the semantics get weird because it's one field, but the format kind of depends on another field or which provider you're choosing.
Yeah, actually, our intention is like to differentiate. Like, if a user wants to have both provider way of formatting and the custom, then both it can have. Or if it is only provider format, that is also possible. But if someone wants only the kind of specified format, then they can use only this field. And the reason, I mean, when we submitted this, the reason was like control plane and then data plane. Like when we have a large cluster environment and then platform is team is different, and so the idea behind is like I mean, it is like a team which needs to contact control plane team to change this access log format for a data plane requirement. So that is a whole idea to get this particular thing we proposed.
So it does seem like if we're only talking about changing the format and not other specifics about the provider, that could be valuable, or that could be more viable from an API perspective.
I think it's more viable, but it's still unclear what a unified format means, given the actual logging providers don't all have the same concepts of format.
Right. No, the idea is not that it's necessarily portable. It's just a string that overrides the
but format's not even a string, right? In some cases, it's a JSON blob. In OpenTelemetry, it's a JSON blob plus a string. In the Envoy access log provider thing, it's like a list of objects to log. So even there, like the format's not necessarily portable. I mean, like, I'm not saying it's impossible to come up with some format that attempts to map them, but it's not just a string in all the providers.
True. I mean, our problem also not about the log format as such, that we don't have in the provider or like that. It is not about that, but it is more about configuring that via mesh config. That is a problem. So like anyone can use this telemetry API to get configured, right? So that's the reason we want to put this particular format, I mean, this field in the telemetry API.
Wait, but isn't the whole the discussion, the reason why we're talking about this universal format is if we want to support such a field in ambient? Is there a particular reason we can't just use the current status quo and kind of ignore telemetry API in zTunnel and only have this apply to sidecars and waypoints?
Wait, sorry. We're not talking about a universal format because of zTunnel. We're talking about Envoy itself having 3 or 4, maybe 5 different logging backends that we support that don't all have the same format. Yeah. Yeah, if we want to make it work for zTunnel as well, which I don't know that we necessarily need to do, like zTunnel is less likely to allow per workload overrides for logging.
Yeah.
No,
So,
yeah,
that makes sense.
By the way, do you need to enable or changing the access logging just for debugging purpose, and you would turn it off when the debugging is done? Is that the scenario? Or?
Yeah, okay. I mean, that is also, we can just put it, but the main idea is like it will go to some like analysis tool, and then it will generate some stuff. So it may not be like always be off or on for some time. It may be kind of when they need, they will put this, and then the access log will generate, at least for our use case. That we
Yeah,
are
so I think the enable disable you can control through the telemetry API. The customization, that's more complex. You would have to bug the admin, right?
Okay, but still that format, how can the user can give that's more of a use case for that user point of view.
Yeah, I was just going back to your scenario of enable, disable. We already solved that problem. I understand we don't solve the problem of customization per namespace yet.
Yeah.
It does look like we do have some generalization in the API already regarding log formats.
This one taken from the already we have the mesh config. I have a set of providers, Mitch. So from there we have taken the one provider here. So the provider is same as the what is available in the mesh config. So it would be same ditto. So maybe the as per our use case that is applicable for the envoy file access log. Maybe over the period the use cases evolves. Maybe we can add one by one. Onto the telemetry API based on the use case requirements. So this is not, we haven't anything created this naming convention or the structure integrity. That is all already available in the given providers in the extension provider set. So we want to reuse that same instead of creating the new fields.
Yeah, I think the complication that we're running into is that we want to allow only a subset of what's available to mesh config, right? Mesh config can do total provider configuration, which is not what we're talking about exposing via telemetry API. We're looking for a way to just extract the portions of mesh config providers that have to do with formatting. It's not it's not a super clean cut in terms of which fields are strictly formatting. Some of them share a log format object, it appears. Others do not share a log format. So it's not impossible, it's work. So there's been a lot of feedback. Is there anything else that we need to say here, Kishore? Do you feel like you have enough kind of constructive criticism to improve this proposal?
Yeah, could you please summarize the what are the things we need further?
So we need to make sure that this works for more than just the Envoy file access log provider. For instance, if a customer is using the OTel provider, how do they customize the formatting there? So some sort of generalization of the proposal, I think, was the primary thing that we were talking about having added. Were there other particular points?
Yeah, just to on that aspect, as I said, right? So I just put it in the our messages, the extension providers config. Can you open that, Mitch?
Messages.
Which
Yeah.
I would say
So
if they
here-
use the hotel provider, probably the hotel configuration will do that. So that's problem resolved.
What OTel configuration will do that?
Hotel collectors, that's they take over that.
The
Not
OTel
ours.
collector doesn't decide what Envoy sends to the OTel collector.
No,
right?
no, but it can filter whatever is sent upstream.
Yeah, I mean, by that same logic, you could filter the standard out ones as well, right? And to be clear, like I'm actually not necessarily in favor of doing this proposal, so I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's not specific to OTel either, right?
Well, hotel does have an API for that. Well, standard out doesn't. We don't have a.
I mean, OTel has a standard way to scrape standard out as it's in the
That's
collector,
true.
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. No. The reason it's important is because again, hotel can use some of the labels or some of the information for generating metrics, and then scrap them. If we scrap them before sending them, then they will not have the ability to
Yeah.
kind of aggregate. That's we break functionality.
Kishore, is this the message you were asking me to open there?
In the yes, Nich. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so the field, like as it's described right now, is just a Envoy file access log that we can edit the path and the log format. I think the idea would be to try to find some abstract way to create a field that just says log format, that then a user could use to override the log format for any of the providers that are configured in mesh config.
Okay, so we
So then there
okay.
will be
Why?
okay, there will be another layer or another like sub option under that, like if anyone wants to modify any of them, something like that.
Something along those lines. We need to come up with, like, if we're making an API change, it needs to be generalized to work for all of our supported logging providers.
So is the access log format at the top level of mesh config just like kind of deprecated? Like
Yeah.
we should.
Yeah, under the access log, we are keeping this. So there are metrics and traces are the separate sections. In the same way, access log we have the section. In the access log section, we are keeping this NY file access log provider configuration.
I would like to raise a doubt here. So if we place a generic log format in telemetry API and expect the log format to be updated to all the providers underneath, we so as log format is present only in NY access log and NY hotel, and they can coexist in the same proxy, right? So wouldn't that be a problem having the exact same log format in both of them? What if the user wants different in different providers, different log formats in different providers? I think it's better to have the exact replication like NY file access log in the telemetry API just to target the specific provider required.
Yeah, the reason we don't want to do that is there's 15 providers and we don't want 15 different unstable provider fields in the API. Like the purpose of telemetry is to be an abstract API that abstracts over the providers. So if it has the provider specific things, then we've kind of lost that goal.
Yeah,
Okay.
Siddharth, it is like log format, and then the two options, like one is what is the provider and what is the corresponding the format that you want, something like that, right, John?
Yeah.
John, if we follow the same whatever in the mesh config provision is there, right? So if we form horizontal global mesh config, there is extension providers. It has a set of some 9 or 10 providers, right? In the similar fashion, if we follow that as one-on-one matching based on the use cases, that would be simple understanding, right? Instead of recreating the new format for the telemetry purpose, and it might also disturbing our yeah, core system code places.
I'm noticing that the telemetry API's access logging field is actually an array. So if you did want to specify different override formats for different providers, you could do that by specifying different access logging setups, each with one provider that you're overriding. It's a little bit of an unfortunate mismatch, the provider ref being an array as well. But it does seem like that would be possible. But yeah, the difficulty here is finding a way to generalize the API to work for all of our providers without, as John said, exposing that we have a bunch of experimental and or alpha providers that we support that don't necessarily belong in a first class API. It's not, I don't think it's an impossible order, but it's challenging. Anyone else have comments before we move on to Lior's topic?
Last thing, would it be crazy to put this in proxy config? The CRD.
Constitution is the same thing about, no?
Yeah.
In terms of like the persona who owns proxy config?
Yeah.
And by the way, annotations can get translated, are sent to Istio D, and you can do all kind of fun stuff with it without changing the APIs.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say, people probably are not thinking about proxy config for logging changes. Because
Yeah, that's fair. It's kind of a crazy idea. But
I mean, we do have fields for it in proxy config already, right?
No, it is configuring the proxy. It's perfectly fine. It just
Actually, I'm not entirely clear what happens if you use proxy config to set Envoy access log service, but the telemetry API to set up a logging provider.
I don't think it's in proxy config, Mitch. It's in mesh config, top level, right? Access log format. That's the field you're talking about.
No, are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Oh, for Envoy access log service.
This is part of the
For
proxy.
that one, yes,
config.
but that's not what most people are using. That's
Right. I guess I'm just wondering what happens if both are set.
I'm not sure about that one. I know for the top level mesh config one, if you have a telemetry, it overrides it. But I
Okay.
think this Envoy one is more like, it's not really dynamically configured in XDS. It's like at bootstrap time, saying that like all logs go here basically. And so I suspect you get both if you set that as well.
Okay.
but it's very legitimate. I mean, if we have a field to say at bootstrap, hey, send all the logs here, that sounds a good place to specify what you're going to send there. And the direction is to use hotel protocol and kind of configure it this way. It will simplify things.
We also might need to update our Envoy documentation links. Carl?
So with ambient, the logs would get generated from ztunnel and the waypoints, right? Because we don't have sidecars in every pod anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And John, how does ztunnel decide where to route those logs? Is it just always standard out?
Yeah, ztunnel only use the standard out and kind of treats it as a
Right.
universal interface because everything can scrape standard out. So
I thought Rust has support for hotel and you can specify
Rust has
tracing.
support,
And
yes, but ztunnel does not.
so we are not enabling it.
No. Like we could, but at this point, it doesn't seem terribly common for people to use hotel for access logs versus just scraping, from what I've seen. So
Well, there is a performance stuff, but yeah. It's not that it was linked in and it just not tested or something, but anyway, maybe things have changed.
Okay. I want to make sure that we give Lior time to cover his topic. So I'll add some notes, Kishore, here on possible paths forward, and we can kind of continue this conversation as we explore what a generic API could look like, what a proxy config modification could look like, etc. Lior, do you want to start us off on the inference conversation?
Yeah, I just probably gonna be quick. Just wanted to get some guidance, like if you want to do docs, obviously do we do like docs, and well, what's the right format or place to do it, like, or it's just like freestyle and Istio.io.
What's the current feature maturity of inference?
Oh, it moved as an X, like it merged to master. It's X, like it's currently alpha.
Oh, it's merged
Okay.
master. Congratulations.
It's currently alpha, and it's gonna be released in 127.
Very nice. Is it like people have to enable it to run it doc launched? Oh,
Yeah, they need to add the flag. It's guarded by a feature flag.
okay, got it. Yeah, I think docs, as far as docs, is probably usual as the rest of the Istio docs by just submitting PRs to the Istio.io repo. I think it would come to, once it's merged, it will be merged into Istio.io. And then you'll be able to see it. I'm sorry, once it's merged, you are going to see it on preliminary.istio.io.
Have you written docs, Lior?
What did you ask?
Do you have docs that have been written, or are you asking for
No,
docs to be written?
No, I'm asking like, yeah, whether it's going to be useful, and if so what's the examples to follow for basically alpha features, if there's any. I mean, yeah.
We do document our alpha features, but we have a header that we usually put over the top that warns users that this is alpha and subject to change. I know with Gateway API in particular, we haven't documented on Istio.io a lot of the things that you can do with Gateway API, instead sort of referring users to the Gateway API docs. So that could be a possibility, in which case maybe just an Istio blog documenting use of inference API. I think we have a lot of options here. It depends on what everyone thinks is best.
Yeah, that was the topic for discussion to ask. I mean, those,
Yeah.
like either blog or doc.
I think blog would be good. If you think the docs on the inference website is sufficient, it might just be a blog would be sufficient. Else you could also create a doc for us, but I don't know how your doc is going to be much different than the doc on the inference site, and then you would have to keep both updated, or somebody has to keep both updated. So
yeah, that's good. It won't be different, and actually I made sure to have an Istio tab on the upstream website. So yeah, probably just keeping that doc up to date is better.
okay, if that's the case, maybe just a blog would be sufficient.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I'll try to look for prior there and send a PR out.
Awesome, sounds great.
All right, well, that topic went quicker than I expected. Any other comments for this week? All right. Well, with that in mind, I will see you all next week. Same time, same channel. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mechanical.